from lap 2 to lap number 3. Currently on the outside of row number 5. Again, that spot is likely to drop at least by a couple, 3, if not more.
Yeah, that is indeed true. And we talked a lot about yesterday, Greg, the different winglet configurations that the cars have the option of running. And you'll see Joseph Newgarden running both winglets on the rear pods of that Team Penske car, which means he's running a touch more downforce, a touch more overall downforce than most of his other competitors.
He did have an incident in Thursday's practice, might have set them back a little bit. Lost yet another mile an hour in lap number 4. His average currently still good for 15th at 228.501. However, that could be dropped back a little bit more, especially with the likes of Graham Rahal now coming to the track. And again, Rahal found some really good speed in that morning practice session today.
He did, and his teammate Oriol Servia currently quickest in this session at a 230.309. So I think Graham Rahal is going to be in a great position here to at least be starting 10th or 11th.
It's remarkable to think, we said this about Marco Andretti yesterday, that Graham has been around long enough at this facility to be approaching double-digit starts in the Indianapolis 500.
Absolutely crazy, considering that he's only a 29-year-old, isn't he? And that he is now a veteran of the sport. And I mean, he won on his IndyCar debut in the streets of St. Petersburg, and kind of everyone thought he's going to be the next superstar of this sport and winning multiple championships. That has not been the case, but he's shown these incredibly bursts of speed throughout the course of his career, and I know he wants to convert with nothing more than an Indy 500 win.
Again, his teammate has the fastest time so far today in terms of a 4-lap average, 230.309. Yesterday, that would have gotten you in the Fast 9, but again, to kind of recap the qualifying format, yesterday's qualifying run was simply to put you into the two groups where you're going to be in that Fast 9 and running for the pole later today. With the best you could do would be spot number 10. That's the best that Rahal can shoot for, but a lot of winners we have seen have come from those rows 4, 5, and 6 as of late.
Well, we heard from Ryan Hunter-Reay yesterday, and he said he won from 19th in 2014, so it's absolutely doable here at the Indianapolis 500. And again, we see the same thing here with Graham Rahal in turn 2, being pushed so high off of turn 2, so he's going to have to adjust his weight jacker now for the back part of the track where the car is going to be a lot more loose.
You talked about the direction of the wind. Let's kind of talk about it in terms of track terms. It is really kind of blowing out of turn number 1 towards turn number 3. What does that mean for these drivers as they're making 4 circuits around the famed Brickyard?
Well, the one thing is that they're going to have to shift gears during the course of the lap. You'll actually notice Graham Rahal is solidly in 6th, but some of the other drivers we've seen previously have been switching between 5th and 6th, and are doing as much as 7 miles an hour more on the run down. As we see a downshift here for Graham Rahal, they're doing about 6 to 7 miles an hour more on the run down to turn 3 than they are down into turn 1.
The difference in a headwind and a tailwind.
Big difference, and even as low aero configuration as these guys are running here, that makes a huge difference to the cars.
The first lap for Rahal, absolutely outstanding, 230.859. Again, the trend has been you're going to lose a little bit of time as you go throughout the course of your run. Lap number 2, and he did nearly a full mile an hour, sub 230, 229, but still on average the fastest of the qualifiers so far in this session.
He is, but you'll notice a big lift here in turn 2 and big understeer. So you can see he actually adjusted his front bar as he went into turn 1, trying to gain a little bit more front grip in that car, but still having to lift quite considerably in turn 2. That's not ideal for the run down to turn 3.
He does have a teammate to collect some data off of, normally a single car operation in Oriol Servia. We didn't have it for you. He was early in the qualifying session. He has the fastest time so far. He might still, after we see lap 3's time come up. Nope, Graham able to push it back, even with that little bit of a lift coming out of turn number 2. Faster in lap 3 than he was in lap number 2.
Yeah, and that was all down to that adjustment he made in the car, just giving him a touch more front grip in the middle of turn 2. So he's now getting a way better run. You'll see him upshifting to 6th gear now very early down the back straight here, 235 miles an hour as he enters turn 3.
As far as people that could pass him in this session, Helio Castroneves, Ryan Hunter-Reay are just a couple of places away, but it's been a good day for Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. Looks like they're going to have the fastest 2 qualifiers so far of this group, and the average for Graham Rahal slides just below his teammate Oriol Servia. 2:30.253. Provisionally, he's in 11th place.
Yeah, that's a job well done, and that's a good comeback for Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. They were in a bit of a tough spot earlier on this week, so that's a great turnaround for that group.
We're just getting started. Final day of qualifying in Indianapolis. Mikhail Aloshin about to go to the race course. Already the other two cars of the Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports stable have taken to the track. James Hinchcliffe currently slotted in 12th. His teammate with an average of just shy of 230 miles an hour. And a very solid run for Jay Howard. He's been one of the positive stories all month long. A guy that's really been away from the sport for the last several years gets an opportunity here through a partnership with Schmidt-Peterson and the Tony Stewart Foundation. Both Hinch and Howard kind of mid-229s. Kind of gives you maybe a barometer as to what this run might be like for Mikhail Aloshin.
It could very well be, but overall a very disappointing month of May for Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports so far. Last year, obviously, on the pole position with James Hinchcliffe and running in contention to win the race, but that has not been the case whatsoever this month. And the one bright side of the equation has been Jay Howard, who's performed well above expectations all the way across the board, both in outright speed as well as in traffic. But I know James Hinchcliffe and Mikhail Aloshin have not been as quick as they had expected.
And let's face it, there has been, over the last few years, times when it's been better to be a Chevrolet than a Honda. It's been more balanced in terms of here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Yet in terms of just pure speed for this weekend, it's been a Honda-dominated effort, which means it's a little head-scratching as to why Schmidt-Peterson has had good speed, not great speed.
It is, but again, it just comes to show you how tight the competition is in the Verizon IndyCar series. And if you just offload the trailer slightly off the setup, then that can determine the path of the rest of the month. You can end up going down a wrong path, and that can steer you in the wrong direction for the entire duration of the event. So I know that they're just going to try and push through qualifying here, and then after that, completely reset and figure out how we're going to make the best race cars possible, because the setup on the cars from the qualifying to the race are completely different. They'll add a lot more downforce to the cars for the race to make sure that they can handle that turbulent air from the cars ahead.
And following Aloshin's run, it'll be Elio Castroneves followed by Ryan Hunter-Reay. About to get the lap time for lap number 1. Mikhail Aloshin's speed, outstanding, 2:30.615, besting his two teammates by a lot.
Very, very impressive run here from Mikhail Aloshin. This could be exactly what Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports need in their quest to get to the top here. And paying attention to the aero configuration of Mikhail Aloshin, he's done basically what most of the other Hondas have done with the left rear winglet on the car, leaving the right side blank.
Mikhail Aloshin about to complete his second lap of qualifying in preparation for the 101st running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Lap number 2, outstanding again for Mikhail Aloshin. Dropped a little bit of speed. That's common going from lap 1 to lap 2, but still clearly the fastest so far of this second session. Even though it's first, it's the guys that are going for spots 10 through 33 for next Sunday's running of the Indianapolis 500. Alongside Anders Krohn, Greg Rakestraw with you. Thank you so much for joining us from the world-famous corner of 16th and Georgetown as we are qualifying cars for a second century of the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500. Aloshin's third lap time into us momentarily again. Loses a little bit, still ahead of Oriol Servia as fastest of this group. That last lap, 2:30.181 miles per hour.
But Mikhail's really got to put this lap together here. That was kind of Oriol Servia's strength, as he was so consistent during his run, as we now see him going down the back straight for the final time here in this qualifying run. So Mikhail, we're going to look for him to go dip down below the apron here, just on that white line, rotating the car nicely. This is a very nice run here for Mikhail.
We went in order of from slowest to fastest from a day ago, so Mikhail was faster than his two teammates yesterday. The same holds true today as well. His 4-lap qualifying average is in, just a tad slower than Oriol Servia, but currently second quick of the day. Let's go to the pits now with Dr. Jerry Punch.
We're with Graham Rahal. Graham, we heard they added a little bit of downforce before you went out, but you still had some moments, some close calls in turn 2. Take us through that run.
But when you add, compared to when we ran this morning, because of the ambient, which isn't a ton different, but the track temp is significantly higher. It really washes out, so obviously the car had pace. We just were a little lighter than Oriole, and I'm glad it's over. I was hanging on. I think had we been able to add a little more and be comfortably flat, then I think we're the fastest car of today. But we just, turn 2 was ugly. Turn 2 was massive push. Turn 4, felt like I was sideways the whole way through. So, you got wind direction, stuff like that. But look, our Steak and Shake boys have worked hard. It's good that we found some speed in both cars today. Obviously, I'm disappointed not to be the fastest of, in qualified 10th, but it's the way it goes.
Graham Rahal, let's check in with Rick DeBrule.
We're back here in the tech line where Fernando Alonso's car has now been moved into position. Let's explain what happened. They had to practice a little bit earlier today, kind of a final run before they were going to go out for the actual race itself, or for the qualifying this afternoon. The Honda engineers didn't like some of the data they saw, but they didn't have enough time to really search through the problem. The only option was to either search to figure out if there was a problem or simply change an engine. What they decided to do was very simply change the engine. Normally it takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours. They had a little under 2 hours to pull it off, and they did it. Just moments ago, as you saw, they rolled into the tech line. Now, once again, just replacing the engine is only part of the issue. Then you have to do all the setup work, make sure all the bits and pieces. Because once you go across the tech line, you can only make changes to the wing angle or the tire pressure. That means this car, as you see it right now, has got to be ready for its qualification run. They pulled it off. It's here, ready to go. In a short time, we're going to find out how well it does. Alan?
Rick, thank you very much. Even though he is a 2-time world driving champion, he's still a rookie here in Indianapolis. He does not need this type of drama going into his final qualification run.
And even though he's got the best possible crew behind him, it's still unnerving to know that just moments ago your car was pulled completely apart. A new engine in that thing, the gearbox fitted to the back of the engine, the wings fitted onto that, all the wishbones, push rods and everything. The feeling of that is not a nice one.
Only 5 of the Fast 9 took practice laps this afternoon. Their qualifying session was from 1:30 just after 2 o'clock local time. Like we mentioned, the fact the 2 Carpenter racing cars did not go out there. Fernando had the fastest time of those 5, but now you kind of shrug your shoulders, throw up your hands because you're not quite sure what's going to happen, having to change engines before you go qualify.
Yeah, exactly. And add to that the wind conditions have changed drastically since he was out. As we see now, Helio Castroneves on the track as the wind gusts keep improving. Helio Castroneves, for a guy I'd like to consider the king of the Indy 500, to only currently be on track to be 17th in qualifying is just staggering.
3-time champion, 2001, 2002, and again in 2009, but the Penske cars only got 1 driver to the Fast 9, that being Will Power, and it appears that the majority of this 5-car stable is going to start from places like row 5, row 6, and even row 7, barring only 1995. That's territory that's usually not what they're used to.
Yeah, it's not at all, and really there are other Chevy teams that are higher up than they are, so I mean clearly it means that it's an issue for Team Penske as a unit, not Team Chevy as a unit, and yeah, so they're going to be thinking long and hard over exactly what they've been doing wrong.
Right now, Helio Castroneves slotted kind of mid-pack. He is turning laps faster than teammates Juan Pablo Montoya, Joseph Newgarden, and Simon Pagenaud. So he is the 4th of the 5 Penske cars to attempt to qualify. Getting ready to take his time for lap number 3 as he sees the white flag as he drives down southbound down the front straightaway at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And he's lost about 3 or 4 tenths of a mile per hour on every lap. His average so far, 229.6. Again, puts him in the middle of this pack starting the race a week from today.
And it's just crazy to think that as of right now, they're running 14th, 15th, 18th, and 19th. Team Penske. This is the captain's team running this far back.
Only 2 drivers led laps in last week's IndyCar Grand Prix to open up the month of May. Will Power led 61, including the final stint of the race. Helio led the other 24. His qualification run is complete. His average 229.515 provisionally on the outside of row number 5.
Yeah, not at all where Helio Castroneves and Team Penske wants to be. So now it's very important for them to quickly change their mindset and figure out how we're going to make the best race cars possible, as we see Ryan Hunter-Reay here in our shot.
From one former champion to another, the 2014 winner in Ryan Hunter-Reay had a podium finish last week in the IndyCar GP.
And that was a strong rebound for Andretti Autosport, who's had a dismal start to the 2017 Verizon IndyCar season. They've struggled. They've been far down in the points, and you can see just how strong that wind is. And what's so special about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, or one of the so many special things about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, should I say, is that around the track, on top of the grandstands, are wind sockets. And you'd think that that may be for airplanes or such, but the drivers will actually be paying close attention to these going into each corner to know exactly has the wind increased or decreased, and based on that, they'll know where to and how to adjust their car.
Ryan Hunter-Reay, your winner in 2014. The person just in front of him in qualifying, Helio Castroneves, was the person just behind him at the finish of this race, with Marco Andretti, his teammate, finishing in third.
And it was that move that you saw there that just shocked Helio Castroneves, and Helio did not have an answer to that whatsoever. He expected he was going to try for the move down the front straight. Ryan Hunter-Reay, Indy 500 champion, but it hasn't been as easy this time around.
The Andretti team has certainly found some speed. Takuma Sato, Alexander Rossi, Fernando Alonso, Marco Andretti. His teammates are all in the Fast 9, other than one-off Jack Harvey for this event. Can he go to school on what his teammates did a day ago?
He absolutely needs to use all of that data, and Ryan Hunter-Reay and basically the entire Andretti operation were so early on yesterday that it was difficult to get a good read on where they were going to be. But so far this run is looking very good here. He's definitely running the car very low. You'll notice in the middle of the corner there's sparks coming off the bottom of the car, so running that as low as physically possible.
Ryan Hunter-Reay, a former series champion in the Verizon IndyCar series as well. Following Hunter-Reay, we have 3 more drivers yet to qualify in this first session. And then we will get to the Fast 9 at the top of the hour. First lap is an absolute flyer, 2:31.674.
Wow, that is a huge lap for Ryan Hunter-Reay, and I think that just tells the story of how strong Andretti Autosport are going to be later on in the Fast 9 shootout for the pole position here. He's going to be kicking himself that he's not in the Fast 9 right now, because that lap of yesterday would have been good enough for P1.
That was the speed that Bourdais was turning on his first 2 laps before that crash here yesterday afternoon.
Car looking very nicely set up here for Ryan Hunter-Reay as he's coming up to complete his second lap. Nicely balanced, not putting too much steering input, and it's quicker.
Faster.
0.2 of a mile an hour quicker on his second lap. That is something you don't see often.
And again, if Hunter-Reay has this in his car, what do Sato and Rossi and Alonso and Andretti have left for us in the 5 o'clock hour local time?
And I was talking to one of the Andretti engineers a little bit earlier on, and they said when it came to Fernando Alonso, they had it a little too lightly on the downforce level yesterday. So today they're going to bolt on probably that left rear winglet that you see now on Ryan Hunter-Reay's car, just to get the consistency over the run for Fernando Alonso as well. So yeah, these guys are not joking around. They're gunning for the pole.
Lap 3 time, a little bit slower, but still easily a mile and a mile an hour faster than anyone else that has run so far in this final qualifying session.
And that is huge for that team, as we see him wash up a little bit coming off turn 2, but not too bad. This is a beautiful run so far for Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Well, in years gone by, in the old 4-day format, there have been times when the fastest qualifier in the field was not the pole setter. Hunter-Reay is turning such a speed, he might just be the fastest qualifier today. We'll see in the next hour and a half. He's going to be starting in 10th position. Certainly appears to be that case with 3 more drivers left to go. His 4-lap average, and you hear the reaction from pit lane, and that should be the case. 2:31.442, easily into 10th. He'll be no worse than the inside of row number 5 to start the Indianapolis 500. The qualifying attempt of Max Chilton when we come back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The skyline of downtown Indianapolis, that view from the Pagoda here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Not far from downtown to the world's greatest race course. Max Chilton has been impressive here throughout the course of this week.
He has. He looked strong in traffic. He's looked strong running by himself. So I think we'll learn a lot more here where Chip Ganassi Racing is going to fall out. Obviously, Scott Dixon had such a good run yesterday. He was on P1 for so long until Ed Carpenter and Takuma Sato right at the end pipped him. So we know they have a great setup as well. So this could very well end up being a Honda fight between Chip Ganassi Racing and Andretti Autosport.
One of 3 cars remaining before we then pause until 5 o'clock local time when we bring you the Fast 9. So it's Max Chilton, his teammate Charlie Kimball, then Ed Jones, who has found seemingly as much speed as his teammate in Sebastian Bourdais did before that crash yesterday. Jones turned a lap earlier today of over 233 miles per hour. Maybe, just maybe, he's got something for Hunter Ray's speed. Let's see if he can do that, though, over 4 laps.
I think he very well could be. I mean, Sebastian Bourdais was over a mile an hour clear of the field when he had his vicious hit. So clearly Dale Coyne Racing have something figured out in their cars.
Max Chilton earned his rookie stripes here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway a year ago. Ready to take the green flag on this qualifying attempt. Obviously can get the data from teammates like Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, and Charlie Kimball. And Dixon and Kanaan will be a part of that Fast 9 and got awfully close to the turn 2 wall.
That car is as free as it can be. You'll notice he doesn't use any steering input in the middle of the corner and uses all the radius tracking up on the exit here. Oh, he gets so close to the wall. He's quick, but this is right on the edge.
So far, just a tad behind the flying speed that Hunter Ray had in his time on the track. Lap number 1, close to the 4-lap average of Ryan Hunter-Reay, 231.417.
And boy, to be that close within an Indy 500 winner, that's quite the statement here for Max Chilton, who came to the U.S. a couple of years ago, did a season of Indy Lights where he, among other things, won at Iowa Speedway, one of his first oval races, and showed so strongly here at the Freedom 100 before last year making his 500 debut. So not a veteran yet of oval racing, but certainly gaining some experience.
Using a whole lot of track real estate going in and out of those turns. Just finding the best way to find speed that he can. Lap number 2, again a little bit slower, 231.141. It certainly appears he is going to slot in behind Ryan Hunter-Reay, but should have a very solid starting spot in this Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Oh, and I think he graced the wall. I think he graced the wall on exit of turn 2. He entered so high and only got wider after that.
We saw this with Jack Harvey earlier in the qualifying session. Max Chilton, very fast through his first 2 laps. Lap number 3, down by about 2 miles per hour because he may have scraped just a little bit of paint coming out of turn number 2.
A little bit of paint is an understatement, Greg. He ran so high off the exit, and yet again he does it. Well, he's not afraid of the wall, is he?
Heading down into turn number 3. It could not match his first couple of lap speeds, but still in position for a very good starting spot in the Indianapolis 500. Completes his last turn. So Max Chilton about to start his second Indianapolis 500 a week from now. Diving at the line for speed. Again, lost more speed, and with that, drops him middle of row number 4. Currently middle of row number 5 with 2 more drivers that could drop him back even further. How close did he get?
So he actually didn't touch the wall, but that is a momentum killer, if anything. It just, and you can see he was all the way up in the gray, and there's absolutely no grip whatsoever there. So he's a lucky boy to escape that. But Indianapolis Motor Speedway qualifying is all about momentum. It's all about spooling up that speed on the warm-up lap. And after that, every time you have to crack the throttle or do a downshift, that's momentum lost, and then you have to build upon that again for a whole nother straightaway. So that is not an easy situation.
A look inside the car of Ed Jones. He's the last driver to go out in this session. Charlie Kimball doing his warm-up laps as we speak. For so many of these drivers, if not all of them, karting is the background that they had before they then worked their way up to IndyCar. In the old days, there were some guys with dirt track backgrounds that would race at this facility. Max Chilton nearly had a dirt track moment sliding that thing around coming out of turn number 2.
He did indeed, and yeah, his oval experience today clearly coming in handy there as we see Charlie Kimball now on track. Another Chip Ganassi Racing entry, and he's going to want to gun for that 10th spot.
Hadn't exactly been a great month for Charlie until yesterday. Found very good qualifying speed. His 4-lap average yesterday, we'll talk about that coming up in a matter of moments. That speed for Kimball, 229.713. He was literally just a couple of 10,000ths of a second behind Ed Jones for having the fastest speed a day ago in terms of those that didn't make the Fast 9.
And Charlie Kimball is the guy that can get the deal done here at Indy. Obviously finished 3rd. Oh, and a big moment coming off of turn 2. That's been the most troubled area for all the drivers here this afternoon, as the wind has been so strong, pushing those cars up against that wall. But that was arguably even closer than that of Max Chilton.
Mother Nature is always a factor here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We delayed qualifying by 5 hours yesterday because of rain. Practice this morning was delayed by 30 minutes because kind of a final shower that got through the area. Charlie's speed, a good one, 230.344, but yet a full mile an hour slower than Ryan Hunter-Reay a couple of drivers ago.
It is, and let's see how he's doing now off of turn 2. Again, running up fairly high, but I think he had a crack of the throttle just to make sure that he didn't touch the wall there. And again, very, very similar to Max Chilton, and there was definitely a touch this time by. Almost a bit similar to what we saw from Jack Harvey earlier.
Check for the white puff. Just from the touch. Clearly more on kind of the rear padding behind that wheel more than anything else. Lap number 2, though, was faster at 230.675 for Charlie Kimball. So the cleaner line coming out of turn number 2 means more speed for the IndyCar veteran.
Yeah, he's not afraid at all of these walls, Charlie Kimball.
He grew up with a karting background. His father, a race engineer. So many guys that you'll see famous last names, Rahal, Andretti, etc. Charlie from more of the engineering background, but has applied that to being an outstanding race car driver and previous and past winner in the Verizon IndyCar Series. Lap number 3 for Kimball. Lost a mile an hour that time through, but again, he is going to have a mid-pack starting position, looking like he's going to likely be on row number 5 to begin the Indianapolis 500 next week.
So his car is probably just a touch too much on edge here, as we see him just being a little bit cautious going into the corners here. A slightly shallower line than you usually see here, which typically means that you want to take it a touch careful.
Giving himself a little more room coming out of turn 3, and we'll see if we'll do that in turn number 4 as well. The answer to that question is yes. Down to one driver left to go in this opening qualifying session before we get you to the Fast 9. And Kimball, right now on the outside of row number 5, can do no worse than the inside of row number 6. His 4-lap average just shy of 230 miles per hour.
And now, of course, the question we all ask is, what can Ed Jones do here? He's been so impressive in his rookie Verizon IndyCar Series season so far. He won the Indy Lights Championship last year up against Santi Urrutia. The two of them battled it out all year long, and now getting ready to qualify for his first ever Indianapolis 500. The pressure on a driver's shoulders here when you go out to qualify for the Indy 500 is unlike that of any other.
The 2 fastest speeds of the month belong to Dale Coyne racing cars.
And you know, you can talk so much about draft laps and no toe laps or what have you, but the fact is Dale Coyne Racing went from being an okay team, an average team up until last year, to now being a genuine contender. And the proof's in the pudding here with Ed Jones. I mean, he's done so well.
Again, Sebastian Bourdais, his teammate now, will not race in this year's Indianapolis 500 because of his injury suffered a day ago. Dale Coyne basically sent the team home last night. So, guys, we're not going to try to fix the number 18 machine and get a driver in it for tomorrow. That will come tomorrow when James Davison steps into number 18. Of course, they've also got the number 63 of Pippa Mann. Their kind of standard month of May procedure at this point. Again, Ed from Europe, then ended up running in the Indy Lights Series, and now with the scholarship money from winning it last year, racing for this Dale Coyne squad. And he's still got a lot to learn as a rookie. but he's shown some great talent so far in this month.
He's shown great talent, but also great maturity. I think he hasn't tried to do anything stupid, and typically what you see from rookies that come in from lower categories, they want to try and prove themselves. They want to try and do everything in one lap, and that typically results in some less than ideal circumstances. But I think what Ed Jones applies is just a cool, level-headed approach, and I think that's helped the team a lot here over the course of the month.
Again, following the end of this qualifying run, we will not have any on-track activity for about 20 minutes or so when the fastest 9 drivers from a day ago run for the pole here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The qualification effort is on for Ed Jones. Again, his 4-lap average yesterday, 229.717.
And he was so unlucky to get bumped out of that Fast 9 yesterday. He was right on the bubble for the majority of the session yesterday, and right at the end got bumped down into 10th spot. But still, if he can qualify 10th, 11th, or 12th here, he's got to be happy.
You see the R on your screen. When you see the view of the car from the back, you see those highlighted yellow numbers and yellow stripe. That signifies a rookie in Indianapolis. He's not driving like one. He's not going to match Hunter Ray, but 230.897 in his first lap of 4.
Still massively impressive and on track now to beat Oriol Servia, which is a veteran of the sport, has 8 Indy 500 starts under his belt, and in a very, very strong team of Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. So Ed Jones has got to be happy with this and just got to keep pushing, keep working the tools in the car here. And he got a little bit loose there in turn 3.
If you tell Ed Jones and Dale Coyne, hey, your rookie's going to be starting middle of row number 4 at the beginning of this month, they would take it and wouldn't stop smiling for days. Lap number 2 for Ed Jones, very consistent, dropped about 1/10 of a mile an hour, quite respectable, 230.789 in lap number 2. He's got about 1/2 of a mile an hour gap between he and Oriol Servia. And again, Dale Coyne, given what happened yesterday in lap 3 of Board Day, that's got to be going through his mind yet. Liking what he's seeing so far from Ed Jones.
Yeah, Dale Coyne is just a true racer. I'm looking at this guy, and I just admire his passion. He's not one of the biggest teams out there, but he's one of those teams that's always there, and you can always count on an underdog result from Dale Coyne Racing. And they obviously broke through to win their first ever race at Watkins Glen in 2009 with Justin Wilson. They went on to some great results together, to finishing 5th overall in the championship, I believe, back in 2013. So this is a team that can, and they've kind of reunited a bunch of key personnel to the team this year, and their performance level has just shown massively.
Ed Jones dropped some speed in lap number 3. He is not going to catch Ryan Hunter-Reay, but again, does have a pretty significant pad over Oriol Servia. And at the completion of this run, what we will have is we'll be able to set the field rows 4 through 11 for the 101st running of the Indianapolis 500. Checkered flag flies on not just Ed Jones, but this session. He will start 11th out of 33 drivers, middle of row number 4.
Massively impressive effort there for Ed Jones. Wow.
Ed Jones, middle of row 4 in his first Indianapolis 500. Welcome back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Things temporarily quiet here on the corner of 16th and Georgetown. Temporarily as in for about 22 minutes to be exact, because that is when cars 9 through 1 from yesterday's qualifying efforts will run for the pole here at IMS. Briefly before we went to that last commercial break, you saw Ryan Hunter-Reay trying to give as much intel to download to his teammate in Marco Andretti as possible. He's the next car that we will see on track to start the 5 o'clock hour local time.
And I could even see Ryan Hunter-Reay signifying the use of the front bar, which is basically, it enables you to adjust the stiffness of the front of the car. You also have a rear anti-roll bar, which does the same for the rear. Then you have a weight jacker, which is a hydraulic cylinder that helps increase or decrease the cross weight in the car. And all of this is stuff that they have to work on over the course of the 4-lap run. And what's very typical typical here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in qualifying is you'll typically see the driver peak on lap 1. That's when the tire comes in. That's when everything is fresh, everything is perfect. And then after that, the goal is how can we stay as consistent as possible? That's when you'll get to see the drivers go to work with their bars, with their weight jackers. And that also comes a lot down to what sort of tire pressures did they set these cars up with? Did they go too light on aero? And if so, they're likely going to fall off.
So these are the 9 drivers that we will be featuring during our final hour of our broadcast today. Only 3 of them driving Chevrolet-powered cars, both of the Ed Carpenter racing machines. Ed Carpenter and J.R. Hildebrand, joined by Will Power of Team Penske. 4 Andretti Autosport cars and 2 Chip Ganassi cars make up our Fast 9.
Yeah, and obviously the order that we're seeing here is the reverse in which they qualified yesterday. So Ed Carpenter was our quickest driver yesterday, and it was a blistering run that he had. I mean, we almost thought that the first lap must have been a fad and that he was going to drop off, but then he followed that outright speed up with so much consistency, and I think Ed Carpenter could be in for a 3rd Indy 500 pole here.
And Ed was the pole sitter in 2013 and 2014, looking to make it 3 in 5 years for a young man that literally grew up around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the alumnus of Butler University here in Indianapolis. Looking back at some of the notables that have already had their qualifying attempt, Ryan Hunter-Reay will start inside of row number 4. Graham Rahal, middle of row number 5. James Hinchcliffe, Juan Pablo Montoya, both start in row number 6. Elio Castro Neves will start in row number 7. Penske teammates Joseph Newgarden and Simon Pagenaud will start back in the 8th row.
To think that Team Penske are back in 22nd and 23rd with Newgarden and Pagenaud it's unthinkable, isn't it?
More drama to come here at the world-famous Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A look at the iconic museum at the heart of the infield, south end of this great race course. Of course, the Pagoda in the background as well. We welcome you back to Verizon IndyCar Series, Indianapolis 500 qualifying. Greg Rakestraw, Anders Krohn with you. 22 cars today have set themselves up, make that 23 cars have set themselves up for this race. Again, 1 car that will start 33rd outside of row number 11. The number 18 of Dale Coyne Racing that James Davison will be filling in for the injured Sebastian Bourdais. Rows 4 through 11 have now been set. The car of Ed Carpenter that you see there, one of 9 being wheeled towards the pit lane. Get ready to go qualifying and try to make the run for the pole and lead this field at the start of the 101st Indy 500 a week from now. To Dr. Jerry Punch.
And I'm with Charlie Kimball. You saw he's on the inside of row 6, faster than yesterday, Charlie, but you had your hands full. As you said a moment ago, we were in commercial, you used the turn 2 wall to make an adjustment on the car. What happened?
Yeah, it just, as I got into turn 2, the wind picked me up a little bit. The Novo Nordisk car kind of took off towards the wall, and it's qualifying for the Indianapolis 500. You don't lift until you have to, and I had to as I brushed the wall. It used the right rear to square the car up a little bit. Unfortunately, from there, the run was a little compromised, but you know, I feel really good about our race car going into tomorrow's prep and then carb day and then for the race next weekend. So I needed to, even though qualifying matters, it's 500 miles around this place, I needed to make sure that I brought the car home in one place. We started as best as possible. I would have liked to have been over that 230 number. You feel pretty awesome when you see a 230 average speed on your dash.
Now, we were told that your 2 teammates, Tony Kanaan and Scott Dixon, are about to roll in the Fast 9 qualifying for the pole. And they were waiting to get your input after your run to see what changes they should make. What kind of input have you been able to give that will help those guys in with their setup?
Well, I think both Max and I will go down and talk to them, let them know what the conditions are doing, just so they can be mentally prepared for it. The help I had from Max prepared me, so I think I did a little better than I would have had I not known that. And setup-wise, I think they'll make some adjustments. You know, it seemed I think it's hotter than anyone was expecting today. The sun's out, the track temp's way up. So I think the grip's maybe not as good as we had hoped. So we'll let them know that. You know, hopefully they can make some adjustments if they need to, because our goal today is to put a Chip Ganassi racing car on the pole.
Hey, thank you, Charlie.
Thanks.
We'll see if the input from Charlie Kimball can help his teammates, Scott Dixon and Tony Kanaan. Now, a few minutes ago, our Rick DeBrule caught up with Marco Andretti. Rick?
All right, Marco Andretti, earlier your teammate went out and did a pretty darn good run. What have you learned from him to hopefully make a fast run and make it maybe a little more comfortable?
We're pretty different mechanically, so we got to take it with a grain of salt. But, you know, I think maybe just a little bit on the aero side we took from him. Track conditions are very tricky right now. 2 has become the toughest corner on the track, and even more so now with the tailwind. So, you know, you go into there with not a lot of downforce. So it's going to be interesting, but it'll be fun.
How different are all the setups of the different Andretti drivers? You can't just take one from the next, because you all drive a little differently, correct?
Not really. I think there's probably 2 setups amongst the 6 of us or something like that. On the ovals, everybody, you know, grip is grip.
Once again, Marco Andretti in that Fast 9, obviously looking for the fastest run of the day.
And clearly, Marco is ready to go. He's going to wait about 15 more minutes. He'll be the first to get that attempt to qualify and run for the pole here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Fast 9 is just moments away. If you are a fan of this sport, or just lovely days outside, today is a wonderful day. We have been owed with some of the weather we have dealt with in central Indiana the last few days. However, for drivers, just how nerve-wracking is the amount of wind they're dealing with?
It really is, especially when you're running as low on aero as you do here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's one thing if you're running the car fully stacked with wing like you'd see on a road course, but you're already so light, so any little bit of wind is just going to shift you and take, call it 50 pounds of downforce off. That's a huge shift in overall percentage of downforce compared to if you're running thousands of pounds of downforce.
Well, let's then kind of talk about the difference then in qualifying setup and race trim setup, which is exactly what these cars will do tomorrow to practice, get ready for next Sunday's race. Would this wind be that big of a factor in, say, if we had these exact same conditions 7 days from now?
The wind would still be a big factor, but the biggest factor in the race is the turbulence from what the other cars are kicking up. So it won't be as big of a talking point as it is today. But I thought that the interview with Marco Andretti was very telling, because he said, yeah, I can learn something from Ryan Hunter-Reay, but we're so different mechanically. And what that means is he might be running a way stiffer or a way softer platform than what Ryan Hunter-Reay is, or a different spring split front to rear or side to side. The special thing here about the oval setup on the cars is basically you never run the same spring on any part of the car. So on a road course, you typically run one set of springs on the front, one set of springs on the rear. But here you have 4 individual spring stiffnesses, and there's a lot of different things that you work on. So clearly Marco Andretti and Ryan Hunter-Reay, with their different driving styles, have arrived at very different mechanical setups.
Still a few minutes away from us going qualifying once again, and kind of nice when you can download some information from the caliber of Mario Andretti, and that happens to be your grandfather.
Exactly, yeah, you can learn so much from Mario, and even though Mario has been retired from professional racing, he still drives here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway almost every week in the IndyCar 2-seater. In fact, I drove alongside him in the IndyCar 2-seater program a couple of years ago, and he's so competitive that if anyone's close to him on track, he will actually trim the car out to make it go quicker and make sure he stays ahead of the game, even in the 2-seater.
We documented this last week. He had this tremendous race against Sam Schmidt in the Aero Technologies in the Sam car that those guys used on the road course last Saturday. Talk about the 2-seater experience that he has, and it's great to always see Mario being back here as one of the legends of this great facility. Of course, the race winner in 1969 continued to drive here all the way through the 1994 Indianapolis 500.
He's just a racer. That's all you can say about Mario Andretti. He is a true racer and a legend.
So the family conversation continues here before we go qualifying for the Indy 500. The Andretti family curse at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's been talked about since the 60s. Again, it has not applied to Michael as a car owner. Andretti Autosport has seen even more success than they're having today, having 4 of the Fast 9. They've been multiple times and enjoyed that milk and the winner's circle here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Let's go to pit lane and Jan Bikus.
Made it into the Fast 9, but Will, you just told me these hot conditions are not going to help you. Why?
Well, I mean, it's the same for everyone. The track temp comes up. That's the one thing you can't measure in downforce is what, the heat radiating off the track. It affects the under tray, so it definitely makes it harder. There's no question. Like, you can do a run, and within minutes, as if the sun was behind a cloud comes out, you feel the difference. You go out and suddenly it's much harder. So it's really picking the downforce to stay flat for 4 laps is what's going to give you the most consistent run.
All right, Will, hope you stay stuck.
Thank you.
Rick?
I'm standing here with Ed Carpenter, and I guess the question is, you've been watching what's been going on. Do you make many changes based on what you've heard from the other drivers at this point in time?
Not really. I mean, I haven't had any teammates out there yet. My teammate's in the shootout with me, so you can watch what people are doing, but it's hard to make decisions based on cars that you know nothing about. So we're going with our experience and our tools that we have, our database, and we've made a decision, and we can make a couple little changes out there after JR goes. We have 2 people in between us, so we'll be able to learn a little something there and see where we are.
Okay, we watched Ryan Hunter-Reay make a pretty impressive run in that Honda. You're a Chevy engine. Do you have something for them today? Do you think you really can pull it off?
I think we can maybe go that fast. I think top speeds are up, and I think some of that's conditions, and the wind is making for a better average speed, but it's making for a harder 4-lap run too. So I think we can run about what he ran. I don't know if I can do, don't know if I can do 4 of them.
We're about to find out. Once again, he's been on the pole here twice. Today he's going for number 3.
It'll be about 50 minutes before Ed gets on the track. He will be the last guy to circuit here at 16th in Georgetown. Mario Andretti looking on. We're minutes away from once again going qualifying in Indianapolis. Alongside Anders Krohn, Greg Rakestraw with you, 16th and Georgetown. There you see the, twice previously, pole-winning car of Ed Carpenter, trying to make it 3 times in the last 5 years, while he has led this field to the Yard of Bricks to start an Indianapolis 500. He's never really had that moment where he's been close to drinking that milk at the end of the race.
And he wants to change all of that here at the 101st running of the race, but I learned so much in his interview there. Did you hear the confidence in his voice? Everyone else is going to be wondering, well, did you see the handling of that car? Did you see the handling of that car? Should we maybe make a change? And Ed just said, nope. We have no idea what the setup on the other cars are, so we cannot react to them. And I think that's beautiful to hear. That means he's confident in the setup that he's got, and I think mentally he's going to be in a great state going into qualifying.
And it backs up their decision. He and Jared Hildebrand said, no, we're good. We loved our setups yesterday. We obviously found something that works for us. We don't need to touch the race cars again. Let's go do this again, knowing that we're going to start hopefully on the pole or the front row, but at worst, we're in the first 3 rows for the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah, exactly, and looking upon Marco Andretti here, here's a guy that really badly wants to qualify on the pole. And going back to the interview here with Will Power, he mentioned just how much warmer it is today than it was yesterday. And now when it gets warmer, the air is less dense. The oil from the surface moves to the top of the surface, so that means that the cars slide around quite a bit more. So it's going to be tricky conditions here, and I think it's a great thing for Ed Carpenter that he's last, because hopefully for him the temperature decreases a little bit before his run.
For Marco Andretti, as you see Scott Dixon awaiting to take his turn here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Marco Andretti was the only driver yesterday that didn't break that 2:30 mark that made his way into the Fast 9. He was the slowest of those 9. His 4-lap average, 2:29.924. But we're kind of seeing most of these drivers kind of bump up their speed by maybe a mile an hour or two. That's kind of been the norm so far today.
Especially with Ryan Hunter-Reay, who impressed so much in his run here with an average of 231.442. So if that's any tale of how strong Andretti Autosport's going to be, I think they could be tough to beat here.
So again, our lineup, Marco Andretti, Tony Kanaan, Fernando Alonso, the first three drivers you will see in this Fast 9 qualifying session. Marco Andretti awaiting his opportunity to retake to the race course. 2006, his first year of running the Indianapolis 500. He's had several close opportunities. Runner-up in his first race. Third place 3 years ago in 2014. Fernando Alonso making a first attempt at the Indy 500, bypassing the equivalent to Indianapolis on the Formula One circuit, not running at Monaco on the best day of racing on the planet this Memorial Day weekend, where Formula One is in Monaco. Open wheel racing in this continent is in Indianapolis. The NASCAR guys, of course, are in Charlotte. Best day of motorsports, period. Remarkable still to think that Fernando says, I'll bypass Monaco. I want to go to Indianapolis.
It just speaks to the importance of this race. And Kurt Busch, obviously, a couple of years ago, made arrangements so that he could do the Indy 500 because it was so important for his career resume to have said that I've done it. He was the Rookie of the Year that year and impressed so much. And I feel like Fernando Alonso is on track to have an equally impressive rookie performance to Kurt Busch. And keep in mind, Fernando Alonso has never done an oval race in his entire life.
Let's mention Zach Brown. Let's talk about the role that he plays in this happening.
I think Zach Brown is a marketing genius for putting Fernando Alonso in this. I know it originally came almost up as a joke from Fernando Alonso. He said, hey, I'd like to do the Indy 500. And here we have it, opportunity.
We'll keep that conversation going in just a matter of moments. As teammates converse between Ryan Hunter-Reay and Alexander Rossi, let's talk about another one of their teammates in Fernando Alonso and the role that Zach Brown, who from this country but now one of the principals with Team McLaren, the role that he played in making this all come down.
I think if Zach Brown was not the CEO of McLaren F1, we wouldn't see this guy in the 29 car here, Fernando Alonso. And I think Zach Brown kind of understands global marketing platforms, and he saw an incredible opportunity with McLaren struggling with the Honda platform over in Europe in F1. He said now could be the only opportunity ever to pull Fernando Alonso out of the car. He's not in championship contention. At the very best, he could maybe get a 5th or a 6th place finish in Monaco. So this thing, I mean, it's broken up the world racing news all around the world, didn't it? I mean, when the announcement was made, the whole world went crazy.
Look this up today because we made the comparison from Fernando coming here to Mansell Mania some 24 years ago in 1993. Again, at the time, the defending world champion elected to run the full season, not just the Indianapolis 500, but the full season with Newman Haas Racing. So he had other races, ended up not having an oval race because of getting injured at Phoenix. So much like Alonso, his first oval race was at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but at least had a little bit more familiarity with the car. That year in 1993, as Ryan Hunter-Reay gives a little last-second information to his teammate in Fernando Alonso, Mansell qualified 8th and finished 3rd in the Indy 500, just to kind of give you an idea about maybe some comparisons between one world champion to another.
And I think it's very possible for Fernando Alonso to do the same here. It's such a long race, so it's impossible to predict exactly the trajectory of your race. You can have a car that gets better and better. You can have a setup that's so perfect and maybe slow initially and then just gets better and better during the course of the run, and that's what makes this race so tricky, both from a team and a driver perspective. It's all about patience. It's all about understanding when do I pounce and when do I hold back. And Fernando Alonso, talk about a birth by fire.
Just a minute or two away from once again seeing cars roll back out to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Again, the worst that any of these cars can do is start on the outside of row number 3. So even if they do not match the speed of, say, Ryan Hunter-Reay, fastest of the previous group at 231.442 miles an hour, it does not matter. Because of their speeds yesterday, they have earned the right to start in the first 9 cars next Sunday afternoon.
And of course, Greg, what this means is all of these guys are going to roll the dice here. They have nothing to lose. They know they're going to start in the first 3 rows. So what we're going to be looking for here are some very free cars. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of them barely using steering input in the middle of the corners.
It's almost time to go qualifying once again at the corner of 16th and Georgetown.
All right, so what's going to play out here in just a couple of minutes? We've got the top 9 drivers with a chance to win the pole position. And we're going to go from slowest to fastest. They have to go out at least one time.
Just seconds away from seeing the cars fire one more time to get back onto the track. We kind of approximate 45 minutes is what it will take for each of these 9 cars to have their warm-up lap or 2, to have their 4 laps of a qualifying run. Had a chance to hear from the great historian of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in Donald Davidson earlier today. And it was amazing to hear him talk about how these qualifying runs are remarkably long in comparison to other forms of motorsports. It used to be 10 trips around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was a qualifying run some decades ago. This is 4 laps, and it is so unique, so entertaining, so exhilarating, so exhausting for the guys that are trying to do it.
It is, because the car has to be so on edge, and we're talking here about a track that's 2.5 miles an hour in length, and these guys are covering that track in 40 seconds around, so they are just flying. And the fact that they're doing 10 miles here, which means 4 corners per lap, so there's going to be a lot of changes during the course of each run here.
Andretti, Kanaan, Alonso, Power, Rossi, Hildebrand, Dixon, Sato, and Carpenter in that order. So literally start at the bottom of the screen and work your way up. That's how we'll determine who will be sitting on the pole and who will lead this field down the concrete canyons in front of literally between hundreds of thousands of people 7 days from now.
It is, but the interesting note that I took away from this little graphic that we just saw here, Ryan Hunter-Reay went a full mile an hour quicker in his qualifying attempt today than what Ed Carpenter did yesterday. So clearly the Andretti Autosport guys have something figured out.
Engine fired for Marco Andretti. Let's do this once again. And Andretti yesterday, his 4-lap average, 229.717. He has been a front row starter one time, that coming 4 years ago. Frankly, he has raced better than his qualification starts have been.
He has. He's always been a contender here, and, well, the proof is right here. 141 laps led here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He's always front runner. But as you said, it's the Andretti curse. When is he going to break through to get a win here at the 500?
Thought it might have been in his first race here, less than 20 years of age when that was the case. Led coming out of the last turn in his first Indianapolis 500. Fate would intervene. Sam Hornish Jr. would pass him to win the 2006 edition of this great race.
And talk about getting snatched away at the line. Marco Andretti was leading comfortably going into turn 3 and turn 4 on the very last lap of the race. And then Sam Hornish Jr. just had a brilliant run up and a brilliant draft to make the pass right at the line.
Marco's father, Michael, a part of that race in 2006 as well.
Very similar look here on Marco Andretti's car to that of Ryan Hunter-Reay, running it so low, a lot of sparks coming off the bottom of the car as Mario Andretti looks upon.
So the green flag is taken. 9th quick a day ago.
So let's see how turn 2 looks for Marco Andretti. This is where Ryan Hunter-Reay picked up his time. Looks very good here. Didn't use the entire road on exit. That's a good sign for Marco Andretti.
You see that LED number 1 underneath the camera well, the air intake at the top of the machine. That will show through his 4 laps regardless, because basically he's not being scored against the drivers that went previously. He's the first of this qualifying group to go. So regardless of what he does, he is the provisional pole sitter at the end of 3 more laps. And his first one, faster than a day ago, not as fast as Ryan Hunter-Reay, 230.659 miles per hour.
And 0.8 of a mile an hour slower than that of Ryan Hunter-Reay. So that tells me that they might have gone a touch too conservative on the downforce settings here. Again, I referred a lap ago that he's not using all the room on exit of the corners. So that's mainly because he's not being forced to use it. That means that the car might be a touch too stuck to the ground, as it were.
Completing turn number 4 of lap number 2. And the trend has been to lose a couple of tenths of a mile per hour on lap number 2. For Marco, he loses more than that. Sub 230 on that last lap, 229.845. And we don't have any comparison yet for the other cars, but looks doubtful that he'll be making a run for the pole. And he came into this day 9th. That might be where he starts next Sunday, which again is not a bad thing in the slightest for either he or his team.
It's not a bad thing, but looking at his run here, I doubt he's going to be on the first 2 rows. This is probably going to be a 7th or 8th or 9th starting position for Marco Andretti.
Lap number 3 about to be in the books as the white flag is being shown. His time for lap number 3 is better, nearly matches his first lap. Maybe a little bit of a glitch or a hiccup in lap number 2. His 3-lap average, 230.378 miles per hour. Again, to put that in comparison to the previous group, he'd be faster than all but 2. Ryan Hunter-Reay and Ed Jones. Yet again, he will start in front of those guys regardless of how he finishes his 4th and final lap.
He will indeed, and it looks like his car is handling pretty well here as he comes out of the final corner for his run to qualify for the 101st Indy 500. Let's see where he ends up.
He will start this race for a 12th time next Sunday, and his best lap of the 4, his final lap. Maybe something he can pass on to his teammates with 3 more to go. 230.474. We'll come back with the run of Tony Kanaan in just a moment. Tony Kanaan will go out momentarily. They're going to hold him. They notice some debris on the race course. They're going to make sure they take care of that before Tony's allowed to make his qualifying run to follow the 2013 Indianapolis 500 champion, 2-time world driving champion Fernando Alonso.
And Tony Kanaan, always a fan favorite here. I referenced yesterday being on top of the stands in 2013 when he went on to win that race, and I have never heard a crowd scream louder than for that of Tony Kanaan. So he's going to look to put on a good showing here for Chip Ganassi Racing. Obviously his teammate Scott Dixon, so strong in qualifying yesterday, was at the top of the standings for so long, eventually ended up 3rd overall. So they're going to take that knowledge into qualifying today.
Tony's 20th year in open wheel racing in either kart or champ car, and then now for 16 seasons, really 15 seasons, and for another additional year running at the Indianapolis 500. He first ran for Mo Nunn in 2002 before then running full-time in the IndyCar series back in 2013. Sure, we'll catch up with Marco at some point in time in the very near future. You heard Tony Kanaan, you heard the sound, didn't see it, but peeling out of pit lane, and that means that Fernando Alonso will be up next in about approximately 3 to 4 minutes.
And talk about a contrast. Tony Kanaan and Fernando Alonso, 2 drivers oh so experienced, but in completely different fields. Tony Kanaan in his 20th IndyCar season, and Fernando Alonso in his first ever race.
So Marco Andretti knows his day is done. Again, these drivers will all be back in their cars tomorrow afternoon, and that is basically a race simulation. I mean, it is a wonderful thing to experience as a fan. It's a relatively new practice session here, so not as many fans tend to know about it. If you're ever making your way to the States, you're going to be here for, say, longer than just race weekend. Make sure you budget some time for that practice session tomorrow, because it's the closest thing to a race you'll ever see.
It is, and they run in a pack, and they try and simulate as much as possible. Looking at some career stats here, Tony Kanaan won the race back in 2013, pole position 2005, and 305 laps led. That's 1.5 Indy 500s in laps led.
Won that pole back in 2005 for what at the time was Andretti Green Racing. Went from Andretti Green to KV. Now has found a home with Chip Ganassi Racing. The qualification run is just underway for 2013 winner Tony Kanaan. First lap underway for Tony Kanaan. He is doing better than Marco Andretti through this point in time in his running. And of note, Marco's best lap was his fourth and final lap, which frankly has been a rarity from what we have seen together, Anders, these last 2 days.
Yeah, it was very strange. He had a conventional drop-off, and then he had a terrible lap on lap 2, and then he bounced back up again in time. So clearly he found something with the setup of his car with either the weight jacker or the bars there during his run. 2:31.239 for Tony Kanaan on the first lap.
Tony found something off the jump. And again, he is still behind Hunter Ray's time from earlier, but well in front of Marco Andretti's time from his opening lap here at IMS.
And I think the really interesting thing when you look at Tony Kanaan's line, he enters the corner so high, he opens up the radius, gets so much of the rotation done on the way into the corner so that when you come off the corner, he's able to open up his hands and really free the car up.
Halfway through his qualifying run as he passes the yard of bricks, his second lap very solid, still above 231 mile per hour.
Beautifully driven so far for Tony Kanaan, again using all the room on entry, just open up the radius of that corner. Very nice run.
Seems to be little doubt that he will have a better time than Marco, but just how high up can he post that speed, knowing he's got 7 very talented drivers that have a chance to catch him.
And the track's probably coming to them now as well. The ambient temp is starting to drop. The wind is not as crazy as it was a little while ago, so everything's going to be coming to these guys.
Lap number 3 about to be in the books again. It's taking these guys less than 39 seconds to circuit the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That lap a bit slower, 2:30.743. He's almost about a millisecond faster than slower than 231 miles per hour.
On his final run here, coming down to turn 3, notice how he moves over to the left and now up to the right to preload the tire, bend the car into the corner, and now the second part of the corner, he wants to just open up his hands, let it free up.
He last won this race 4 years ago. He last sat on the pole 12 years ago. Only time will tell in the next 30 minutes or so whether he will do it once again in terms of the pole position, but he's provisionally on the pole as we speak. Dropped some speed in lap number 4, but his 4-lap average, 2:30.828. Currently on the pole is Tony Kanaan.
Still only dropped 1 mile an hour from his first lap to his final lap.
To pit lane we go, and Rick
Fast 9 to qualify. You came in, the first thing you said was that second lap is going to haunt me. Why?
It's pretty obvious. It's slow. But even our top speed was nowhere near what we needed for pole. I only lifted on that one lap. The understeer must have been a gust or something, caught me out. And I adjusted the tools from there, but I kind of had to learn by fire. I didn't really know what the car was going to do till we got there. But these guys, my teammates can adjust from my run, unfortunately. But, I think we can win this race from 33rd, but we can do it from 9th for sure.
All right, once again, Marco Andretti in the race, not as well as he'd like, but still right in the first 3 rows.
These guys are so competitive. They want to win at everything, including qualification. But at the end of the day, they know outside of row number 3 is the worst that I can do. For those that are just joining us, a little additional drama that was unnecessary on pole day for Fernando Alonso. Question about the reliability of his engine after the final practice session of the day. You take no chances. You simply change the engine. More than just the McLaren Andretti Honda team, part of the crew members from Marco Andretti's car, Ryan Hunter-Reay's car were helping out. Brand new engine, this number 29 machine, as Fernando Alonso looks to lock in his first starting spot in the Indianapolis 500.
And for the sake of all Fernando Alonso fans around the world, let's hope the new engine is a bullet as he takes the green flag here for qualifying for his first ever Indy 500.
Again, he had the fastest car of the 5 from this group that elected to practice earlier this afternoon.
Nicely done so far. Very nice and low line going through turn 2. You'll notice the setup on his car is a little bit different to that of yesterday. He's now added the left rear winglet just to add some downforce to the rear of that car for today's qualifying run.
So far, he is faster than Tony Kanaan. That's what the 1 tells you there on the graph in the lower part of your screen. A rookie here in Indianapolis, but of course nowhere else on the planet.
That was not an ideal exit out of turn 4. Just got into the soft limiter.
First lap, 231.113 miles per hour. But he did scrub some speed there late in lap number 1.
And I think that lost him a lot of time going into turn 1. So let's see how this ends up going for him here as he approaches turn 3 for the second time.
Last raced at this facility 10 years ago in the United States Grand Prix, the last time that Formula One visited the road course. World champion the 2 years previously. Tony Kanaan waits and watches to see if he will stay on the pole. You can tell by his demeanor, he doesn't think he's going to be there for long.
Yeah, not at all, but a way better lap. Second lap here for Fernando Alonso, so he's picking up momentum during the course of this run. That means that this car is hooked up and only getting better.
231.440 was the speed in lap number 2, over 0.3 of a mile an hour faster. And again, we haven't seen that happen that often in any of the qualifying runs so far.
Not at all, but he did have that bobble coming off the first lap, so I think that's probably what hampered it. His first lap might have been a 231.45. So now coming up to his third lap, and now we'll learn a lot of what's happening here. 231.475, almost an identical third lap here for Fernando.
He has increased his speed in each of his successive laps from 1 to 2 to 3. Fernando Alonso with 6 more qualifiers to follow could be provisionally on the pole for his first ever IndyCar race, the Indianapolis 500.
2 more corners to go for Fernando Alonso, and just open up your hands. This is going to be, even if he's on the pole or not, this is still such an impressive first qualifying session here for Alonso.
We said it yesterday, we'll do it again. He has yet to take a step wrong at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A little less speed in lap number 4, but a half mile an hour faster than Tony Kanaan. As of now, a new pole sitter at the Indianapolis 500. It is Fernando Alonso.
231.300. Is that going to be good enough, Greg? I'm not so sure. I wouldn't be surprised to see a pole time
TK,
around 232.
You said your teammates, Max Chilton, Charlie Kimball, they had a push in turn 2, but their input helped you. How so in your run?
Well, we kind of made a change for what we had in comparison to the run. I'm not happy with my run, but it is what it is. I got to thank my sponsors, NTT and Chip Ganassi, for giving me the opportunity to qualify one more time. But yeah, it could have been a little bit better, but I won from 12 here, so I don't think it will be a problem. We're inside the Fast 9, so.
Okay, Tony Kanaan not happy with his run. Remember, a split strategy. He went one way, Dixon went another. Will that help Scott Dixon when he goes to run?
Even when you're a previous 500 champion, if you're in the pole sitter spot, you got to move. That's what the security guys were telling him. Hey, this is great you were here. There's a new guy atop the pylon in the front straightaway, and it's the gentleman with the Johnny Walker label on his visor, Fernando Alonso.
Fernando Alonso, currently your pole sitter here. Now it's going to be a long wait for him as the final 6 go for the shootout to see if anyone can topple him. But that was a great run for Fernando. It looked like he made no changes to the setup of his car whatsoever during that run, which means he's going to have been super happy.
Will Power, Alexander Rossi, J.R. Hildebrand, Scott Dixon, Takuma Sato, and Ed Carpenter all have yet to make their runs. Will Power on the race course as we speak.
And Team Penske, we talked about their struggles so far this month. They've been off the pace the entire month. They haven't been so bad in traffic, but when it comes to outright pace by themselves, they've been lacking big time. So Will Power is going to try to make up for that.
Power, the runner-up to his teammate in Juan Pablo Montoya here 2 years ago, has never had the pole but has had the opportunity to start in the middle of the front row on a couple of previous occasions. Got his start in this country in motorsports in Champ Car when that was folded into IndyCar nearly a decade ago. Will, one of the great stars to make that jump from that series to this one, and has been an absolutely natural fit at Team Penske.
He has, and I think when it comes to outright pace over a lap, there is no driver better than that of Will Power. I mean, he's able to extract something that's just so special. Now, he's currently not on such a good first lap here, but on road and street courses, forget about it. Will Power's your guy.
But he has turned himself into a very quality oval driver as well. Clearly, it's been a process. It's something that he has learned, but he also doesn't exactly have the help from the teammates, at least in terms of the sheer speed department. If you're just joining us, the Penske drivers, he's the only one of 5 that qualified for the Fast 9. Juan Pablo Montoya will start outside row 6. Helio Castro-Neves inside row 7. Joseph Newgarden and Simon Pagenaud will start back in the 8th row. First lap for Will Power, very good, 2:30.912. Currently slots him in between Alonso and Kanaan, but still 3 more laps left to go.
There is, and the question here, it becomes down to durability over the course of the run. Have they nailed the tire pressures here? Have they gone too light or too heavy on downforce? We're going to learn a lot more after lap 2 here to see what the progression is.
Power, the first of 3 Chevrolet-powered drivers that are part of this Fast 9. The other 2, part of the Ed Carpenter Racing stable. Both Ed Carpenter and J.R. Hildebrand. Big drop from lap 1 to lap 2. Almost down to the 229 range for Will Power.
Just a massive drop-off, and again, this is so un-Team Penske-like. They seem to always be able to extract something when it's money time for qualifying, but not so this year.
But funny how I'm not worried about him come race day.
I think he'll be just fine, and I think we can say the same for Juan Pablo Montoya. Especially Montoya looked great in traffic, so I think he's going to be charging to the front.
This has not been a vintage Team Penske weekend, but as good as they have been in quals over the years, they have made their money on race day, which is 7 days from now. More or less consistent from lap 2 to lap 3. Again, Power not going to be a factor for the pole, and in fact, right now, slower than Marco Andretti's time. It appears that Power is likely headed for row number 3.
Yeah, not at all what these guys were hoping for, but all Will Power can do here as he approaches the final 2 corners is keep it clean, don't make a risk, and he got a bit loose there going through turn 3.
Fernando Alonso, he'll be in that small box for at least one more driver. Will Power is not going to catch him. Will Power finishes his 4-lap qualifying run, currently 4th of the 4 drivers. And let's go to pit lane to talk to Fernando Alonso.
And the first thing he said when he came in was, I thought I had a little more left in the car. Where did you lose it?
I think today the car was better than yesterday, better balance, and I felt more confident also this morning on the practice. But yeah, we had a overboost problem now in the last corner, so the engine is like hitting the brakes out of the corner, and I think I lost a little bit of speed into the main straight. But it's the way it is. Nothing we can change now. The guys did an amazing job this morning. They changed the engine in a record time in 1 hour and a half. So yeah, happy to be here in qualifying, and the car performed again perfectly okay.
Everybody's been talking about turn 2 being pretty tough today. Did you have any moments there?
Every single lap, so I had 4 moments.
Okay, so what have you learned about this place that you can take into the race?
I mean, you know, the place is this is the biggest race in the world. So, I felt that the first time I came here, but obviously the circuit was empty, so you feel that something, but now the qualifying arrive, and you know the speed pick up on the event. I think seeing all the fans and the place, you know, getting up to speed, I think is even more amazing. So looking forward to next Sunday.
All right, Fernando Alonso currently number 1, shooting for that pole.
He literally can't stop smiling. Nor should he, given what he's doing at this place.
He's just loving his experience at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I love his enthusiasm. He said, I think we could have had a little bit more there. I had an overboost issue as a result of that over rev there, or hitting the RPM limiter coming off of turn 4. But now we're going to learn a lot more. Alexander Rossi is on track for his run. So let's see what he can do, the Andretti Autosport teammate.
The defending race winner, Alexander Rossi. He was a driver who was acknowledged as, hey, here's this young American guy that has a Formula One background, but barely anyone knew him. You would say people knew of him in this series, but American fans did not know who he was. You can fix that quite easily by winning the first time that you're in the Indianapolis 500. And how about this for speed? 2:31.843.
Massive lap here for Alexander Rossi. Last year, he won the race on fuel and strategy. This year, he wants to win it on speed. Look at how free that car is off of turn 2.
You and I have our different terminology. I was going to say he won it with guts and guile last year. He's trying to win it with raw power this year. He had a little bit of a wiggle coming out of 2. Again, that's been the trouble spot that we have seen. through qualifying today because of the wind, but frankly, he's got a bit of a speed cushion to burn. We'll see how much it cost him. Lap number 2, a little bit, 2:31.153. Again, in terms of simply the average, he's about 0.2 of a mile an hour faster than his teammate Fernando Alonso.
But a little bit more of a drop-off than that of Fernando Alonso. And if you remember Fernando Alonso's run, his second and third lap were virtually identical. So this is going to be where it all folds down. And oh, he's so free there through turn 3.
Alexander Rossi, when he was in Formula One, really couldn't even think about competing with the types of Fernando Alonso. He gets the opportunity here in IndyCar and to do so for this race as his teammate. Lap number 3 is in between laps 1 and 2. And from an average standpoint, through 4 laps of Alonso, 3 laps of Rossi, the lead remains about 0.2 of a mile an hour. Again, Rossi, last year's race winner, trying to at least be this year's pole sitter heading in to defend his championship.
Just 2 more corners to go here for Alexander Rossi, and he's keeping it so nice and controlled so far. Beautiful run here for Alexander Rossi.
Hasn't exactly been a lot of guys kind of sitting in that small box and waiting for longer than a driver or two. Alexander Rossi will usher aside Fernando Alonso from your picture temporarily, because Rossi is currently on the pole with 4 more drivers yet to qualify for the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Things are heating up for the pole position here. Fernando Alonso bumped aside.
And with 2014 Series champion Will Power, another one of the Penske efforts, and Will quicker than yesterday. That's the good news. Bad news, not quite quick enough. Put this run in perspective.
I mean, that was all we had. Maybe could have ran a little short of gear. Maybe I should have used 5th and not 6th. But we knew that in order to use that 6, that's the only way we're going to beat the Hondas if we had the speed, but we didn't. That's as good as we got, but it's a long race.
Long race. Qualifying day 1, but the race day, these guys are already talking about going to be a different effort from Team Penske.
J.R. Hildebrand not going the direction that you want to go in before your qualifying run. They are going to refire. JR back in a full-time ride after really being limited to running for this team during the month of May only for the last couple of seasons. And of course, you think back to what might have been in 2011. We have referenced Marco Andretti leading out of turn 800, so to speak, in 2006. It was JR getting tripped up in turn 800 that prevented him from winning as a rookie at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yeah, we're looking at one rookie winner, and J.R. Hildebrand was so close to taking that win, just caught out by the marbles on the very final corner, the final lap. But J.R. Hildebrand has become something of an oval specialist during the course of his Verizon IndyCar Series career. Won the Indy Lights Championship, then moved up to IndyCar with Panther Racing, a team that had done so well on the ovals previously with that of Dan Weldon, and almost won the 500.
The folks from PFS that sponsor this car for J.R. Hildebrand during the month of May, their mascot is a polar bear. They're trying to go to social media, think of a new name for him. If J.R. Hildebrand wins this race, might I suggest champ? Let's go to Alexander Rossi is talking with IndyCar Radio as we speak. We'll hope to hear from him coming up in a matter of moments. So Hildebrand on the course. Again, had that close opportunity in 2011. Has been in what was a third car until this year for Carpenter Racing. Really hasn't come close to having that opportunity to win. Clearly with the speed he showed yesterday, he's got that chance in the 21 machine.
He does, and this will give us a great insight into how strong Ed Carpenter is going to be here. He's going to be the last runner today, but as of right now, a great run for J.R. Hildebrand as he's currently P1 on track.
And the time to beat is Alexander Rossi. His average speed over 4 qualifying laps, 231.487 miles per hour. This is as fast of speeds as we have seen in qualifying in the last 2 decades here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Just crazy speeds, and the question, begs to be asked, are we going to see a top speed here of 232? Great first lap for J.R. Hildebrand.
His first lap faster than the average of Rossi over 4 laps, but Rossi's first lap about 0.3 of a mile an hour quicker than that of J.R. Hildebrand.
That's still a great run for the Ed Carpenter Racing Group here for J.R. Hildebrand. This is great data collection for Ed Carpenter as well. And did you see just how he preloaded the tire going into turn 3? He's trying to get all the rotation done on entry so he doesn't have to use the steering wheel on exit.
Right now it's an all Honda front row. JR trying to bring a bow tie, make it a little more of a formal get together on the front row. Lap number 2, slower, 231.010 miles per hour. And as you can see by the graphic on your screen, that's currently third quick in terms of average of the 6 drivers that are part of this session.
And this falls into line with what we've seen all month long, in that the Hondas have the outright pace on the Chevys, but when it comes to a long run, it could potentially be the Chevys that have the advantage. So even if J.R. Hildebrand doesn't get the pole position today, he's still going to be looking super strong for the race.
Hildebrand currently slated to be outside of row number 1, could be no worse than the outside of row number 2 if he simply maintains this pace with his teammate Ed Carpenter plus Scott Dixon and Takuma Sato yet to go. Similar speeds, laps 2 and laps 3. It doesn't appear he's going to have anything for the pole sitter and Alexander Rossi. He's trying to hang on and stay in front of Tony Kanaan to currently be provisionally in 3. Big wobble, little contact in turn number 2.
And that is that turn 2 biting yet again, and he was as close as we've seen anyone here so far. That wind just gusting and catching him.
Well, again, he's not going to catch Alexander Rossi. Now he's just trying to finish solidly this 4-lap qualification attempt. And how much speed will it cost him?
This final lap's probably going to be quite a ways off. His final lap here, a 2:30 flat, so he lost a full mile an hour on that final lap.
Hildebrand able to maintain that 3rd spot. And let's take a look at the latest nervous moment in turn 2.
Turn 2 turns in low, but then just starts washing up, and you'll see the wind just catches him, and from there it's a wild ride, and just a grace of the wall. And that's a 230 miles an hour, Greg.
And there are still the tracks from yesterday's incident with Sebastian Bourdais that serve as a reminder of the peril of that corner and every corner at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Alexander Rossi is currently on the pole at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He's got to fend off the challengers of 3 more drivers.
And Alexander Rossi had the nerve-wracking experience of going out for 4 laps. Now you got the nerve-wracking experience of watching everybody else go after your time. Let's talk about your laps, because they took a little bit of wing out, making it again a little bit dicier out there. How hard was that run?
Yeah, it was hard. It was a lot harder than yesterday. Track temps were up, so same for everyone. It was okay run. Lap 2 was not great, so that could have been better, and I'll be pretty frustrated if we miss it by that amount.
All right, how hard is turn 2? Everybody's been talking about it. Are you just hanging on for dear life? How do you get through it?
Yeah, actually, turn 2 is not hard. It's just easy to make a mistake because you have the tailwind from 1 to 2, so the front can take off pretty easily. Actual fear is 3 and 4 because the wind is the other way and it's on the nose. So, and you have to have the aero balance to deal with turn 2. So 3 and 4 becomes quite tricky.
All right, once again, Alexander Rossi. A year ago, he finished first. Now he's waiting to see if he can start first in the Indy 500.
Rick, thank you very much. Scott Dixon on the race course, the 2008 Indianapolis 500 champ. He has been a part of this race and this series. The race for 16, 17 years at this point. The series on a full-time basis since 2003. But he came over to the States at such a young age. He's still got plenty of great years left to go as an IndyCar driver.
He does, and looking at his stats, I can't believe that he's only won 1 Indy 500 every single year. We see him either on the podium or contending for the win, and basically until the very last lap. And I remember a couple of years ago, Dario Franchitti, Takuma Sato, and Scott Dixon in that intense battle up until the final lap. And so I think we're going to see a great run here for Scott Dixon. Well, his steering input so far, look at how minutely he uses the steering wheel here. Barely using it whatsoever, not putting any scrub into the car whatsoever.
Are you surprised that the Iceman is as smooth as he is? In 4 laps yesterday, his speeds were in 1/10 of a second of each other. His first lap, 2:32.595, a mile an hour faster than the 4-lap average of Alexander Rossi.
What a huge lap for Scott Dixon, and that just proves how beautiful this car is handling right now. Basically no steering input whatsoever. This car is hooked up.
Completing turn number 3. His wife, Emma, should be all smiles, given what her husband has done so far. We'll get the time for lap number 2 coming up in just a matter of moments. It is every bit as impressive. He lost some speed, but still above 232 miles an hour. He's got speed to spare compared to Alexander Rossi.
He does, so now he just needs to keep consistent on the final couple of laps here. Lap and a half to go as Chip Ganassi looks upon, and he doesn't look phased at all, does he?
The funny thing is that the phrase we call it these days is photo bombing. Don't forget to mention the fact that Joseph Newgarden and Juan Pablo Montoya were behind him watching, checking this out from pit lane. They're not teammates, but they can certainly respect the hustle as Scott Dixon is flying around the yard of bricks. His third lap, very similar to lap number 2, 232.018 mile per hour. And Scott Dixon, at worst at this run, will be on the front row for the 101st running of the Indianapolis 500.
What's so impressive about this run, Greg, is that he's basically unfazed by the wind in turn 2. You've seen everyone else get washed up right to the edge of the track coming out of turn 2, but that has not been the case whatsoever with Scott Dixon.
He is throwing the gauntlet down for those that have come before him and the true drivers left to attempt after him. Takuma Sato and Ed Carpenter. The bar for those two just got a whole lot higher. Lap number 4, just shy of 232 miles per hour, but his average puts him on the pole with 2 drivers left to qualify, 232.164.
I've got goosebumps, Greg. 232.16 miles an hour average over the 4 laps. Massive.
Now Chip Ganassi is all smiles. Emma awaits the return of Scott.
And Chip Ganassi will continue to be all smiles if Takuma Sato here and Ed Carpenter don't go any quicker than that. It's going to take some doing to go quicker than 232 miles an hour.
Scott acknowledging the crowd as he's heading back into pit lane. J.R. Hildebrand will be on the...
And here with J.R. Hildebrand, and he and other drivers just shaking their head watching Dixon's run. J.R., let's talk about your run. 3 really good laps, then on lap 4, a hold-your-breath moment coming off 2. You missed the wall by a good 1/8 of an inch, but what happened?
Yeah, I mean, just a couple of hold-your-breath moments there on the last lap, but I got to say, I think we got 2 of the best qualifiers around here going out right now. Scott just showed everybody what's going on. Ed Carpenter about to go out. I just want to say, like, when people talk about what we do here now and say, like, these guys wouldn't have been able to do what Foyt and Mears and those guys did back in the day, these 2 dudes are about to show everybody what's going on. So big props to these guys. Huge, thanks to the ECR team for what we were able to do out there. We're locked in the top 5 here to start the race. Really excited to see where Ed's going to end up, and excited for the whole preferred freezer and the sort of bow tie brigade. I'm glad we were able to haul a couple up there.
J.R. Hildebrand thinking maybe his teammate Ed Carpenter, has something for Dixon. We're going to find out in a minute.
Dr. Jerry Punch, thank you very much. What a run by Scott Dixon.
Yeah, I mean, looking at every input that he made to the car there during that run, he never changed the bar. He never changed the weight jacker, which means the car for him was absolutely perfect. But if there's anyone that can knock him off the pedestal on true grit and determination over a 4-lap average alone, Takuma Sato is our man.
The last of the 4 Andretti Autosport cars to make their qualifying run, and a very good first lap. Not as fast as the first lap for Scott Dixon, but still quick. 232.171 miles per hour for Takuma Sato.
Yeah, but Takuma Sato on his first lap only did as good of a lap as Scott Dixon did on his 3rd lap. So Takuma Sato needs to actually pick up his speed here considerably over the next 3 laps in order to have anything to do with Scott Dixon.
His first year driving as part of the Andretti Autosport teams at the last several seasons with AJ Foyt Racing. Led them to a win on a road course event during his days with AJ Foyt. He's always been solid here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Nearly a winner 5 years ago. That great last lap duel that ended with a crash in turn 1 for Takuma. His second lap was much slower. Again, almost brushing that turn 2 wall. That's been a familiar refrain throughout the course of the afternoon. That might cost him his chance at the pole. but he still has a chance to start on the front row next Sunday.
He does, but he's got to be careful here. I think he'd be in his best interest here to maybe add a little bit of front bar just to secure the rear end of that thing, because when he got up off of turn 4, that thing got so loose, washed up off the track.
And he is a full mile an hour slower than what was his opening lap. He is still solidly middle of row number 1, has about a 1/10 of a mile an hour cushion between he and his teammate in Alexander Rossi, and there was no doubt that he made a bit of contact with the turn 2 wall that time.
That was a hard hit. That will have no doubt upset the toe of the right rear of the car, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him slow here in turn 3 and 4 on his final lap.
Again, we'll see how much that affects him. He will not be able to catch Scott Dixon. However, he will be starting very much towards the front of the field for the 101st running of the Indianapolis 500. Currently on the outside of row number 1, Rossi, the fastest of the Andretti cars. That also bumps Fernando Alonso out of the front row for next week's starting grid.
But if he ends up on the inside of row 2.
Well, let's talk to you about your run. It's simple. Where did you find that speed?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, we knew the conditions were much better for today, and we took a little bit of a gamble trimming out. And you know, everybody at Chip Ganassi Racing has been doing a fantastic job. And the NTT data car was fast. Hopefully, we're fast enough. You know, we know Ed's extremely good around here. But when I saw that first lap, I was a little shocked myself. But I had to breathe a little bit in 2 to keep the front tires on the car, which is where we saw that degradation in the speed. So. I don't know. We'll see what happens, man. But I'm stoked for the whole 9-car crew and everybody in TT Data and Chip Ganassi Racing. TK's been a big help too. Obviously, he ran earlier, could let us know what was going on there. But this place is nerve-wracking, man. Especially when you don't. You know, I haven't been in the car all day. You know, the last time I was qualifying last night, and then you sit around watching everybody. You see people touching the wall. You see, you know, the highs and lows and the extremes. And man. Oh, we'll see. One more to go, but it's just crazy. I love this place. I love the fans here. You can hear them in the background when these big speeds go up, and obviously when people get close to the wall. But man, it's emotional.
All right, now all I can do is wait.
One more driver that can potentially best Scott Dixon, a 2-time pole sitter and a hometown kid, Ed Carpenter. But do not lose sight of the fact that a guy that is going to start his 15th 500 just called the process nerve-wracking. Even the veterans feel it when they're as talented and as calm and collected as Scott Dixon.
And this guy's called the Iceman, and even he was worked up after this run. And I think qualifying on an oval in IndyCar is as nerve-wracking as it gets. The car is absolutely on the edge. You cannot miss it by an ounce, or you'll be in the back of the pack. And Scott Dixon, yeah, he held his breath for that one.
232.164. That is the 4-lap average that Ed Carpenter has to beat. His 4-lap average yesterday, 230.468. Scott Dixon improved his speed by nearly 2 miles an hour. Ed Carpenter is tasked with the same if he's looking for that 3rd pole at Indianapolis.
And I seriously doubt we're going to see it here from Ed Carpenter. So far, his car is not looking as happy through turn 1 and turn 2 as that of Scott Dixon.
Slower so far in his first lap. Ed might have to settle for simply shooting for the front row. We'll see his time as he flies by. Found 232.180 miles per hour. So faster than Dixon through 1 lap compared to Dixon's 4-lap average, but slower than Dixon on lap number 1.
And for all intents and purposes, identical to that of Takuma Sato's first flying lap. So as of right now, Scott Dixon is in the clear.
I'm not sure if I'm getting a bigger kick out of seeing the time that Dixon turned, or actually seeing him look nervous. That doesn't happen ever.
The worst part is the waiting. You know there's nothing more you can do. Right now, he's just waiting to see what can Ed Carpenter do as we're coming up to see his 2nd lap get completed.
Very good speed. He is now south of Dixon, but clearly in the 2nd position. His 2-lap average, 232.046 miles per hour. Emma can't even look at this point.
Scott Dixon, hold your breath for another lap and a half. to see what Ed Carpenter has, but I seriously doubt Ed Carpenter is going to be able to do anything here. He's got that normal taper off here, so he's probably going to lose about another 2 to 3 tenths of a mile an hour on this lap as well.
Through 2 laps, he's a tenth of a mile an hour back in terms of speed. We'll have a much better idea here on lap number 3. That time is in, and he did drop speed. Scott Dixon, by about 3 tenths of a mile an hour, appears to be bound for the pole yet again at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
But still, the fact that we're talking about 3 tenths of a mile an hour at 232 miles an hour is the difference between pole and second is just mind-boggling.
It appears we're going to have 3 different teams and 2 different engine manufacturers on the front row at Indianapolis. Ed Carpenter about to complete his run. He should start in the front row, but starting to his left, the pole sitter will be Scott Dixon. He is on the pole. Ed Carpenter, middle of row 1, and the outside of row number 1, the defending race champion in Alexander Rossi.
So well deserved to see the entire Chip Ganassi racing team celebrating there. Yeah, it may only be the pole position, but it's the pole position for the largest race in the world.
And there is some money that is attached to winning the pole here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Rick DeBrule is standing by with Scott Dixon.
Congratulations. The good news is you didn't have to wait long. Chip Ganassi comes up, gives some congratulations. They have got the pole here for the 101st running of the Indy 500. I got to ask, how does it feel?
It feels damn good. Thanks, mate. I got a lot to.
Nice job, buddy. Nice job.
Nice work, Chris. Trim the car, and I'm like, even sitting before we go out there, I was like, man, I think we've trimmed too much. You know, should we put some more downforce in the car? And I did have to lift a little bit, but that first lap was just huge. So I can't thank the team enough. You know, they've been working so hard. This season has started off great. You know, it's a good points day today as well. But the emotions that you get here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway is crazy. It's so crazy. But this is job 1. Obviously, the real deal is coming up in a week's time, and that's where we've got to push even harder and try and capitalize more.
Now, you hear a lot of people saying, you know, you can win from any place. But how important is it to be up front at the start of this race? First, got to get hugs from the kids.
The pole is its own race here. You know, it's its own weekend. It's its own deal. So, you know, the significance of winning the pole is big as well. But obviously, we're here to win the race. If you can start near the front. Back in 2008, we won from the pole, so hopefully we can replicate that year.
Now, I guess technically we got 15 minutes here.
Well, yeah, I don't know what the deal is on there. I don't think anybody else can run again, but huge thank you, obviously, to NTD Data, you know, the team, everybody in Chip Ganassi, all my teammates, and Chip, you know, always the man, and Honda bringing the power. That was a huge day for us to start with. Let's bring on next week.
All right, Scott Dixon, once again, an incredible run, faster than even he expected.
Great to see Scott share that moment with his daughters down in pit lane. We talked about the Honda versus Chevrolet battle as kind of a look through Scott Dixon's run. 3 Chevrolets in the top 9, but 14 Hondas out of the top 17. Scott Dixon, your pole sitter. Get alongside Anders Krohn. Greg Rakestraw with you. More media responsibilities for Scott Dixon. Down on pit lane, getting a handshake from the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in Doug Bowl, standing by to talk to Michael Young from IndyCar Radio. You saw the glance back to when Scott won it some 9 years ago. Trying to make some memories for these 2 little girls to remember about winning this race for a second time.
Yeah, he is, and just listening to his interview, I mean, I don't think anyone cares more for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway than Scott Dixon does. I mean, he lives and breathes for this place. As we now see Dario Franchitti, his old teammate, congratulating him. The entire team just being so happy with what he's achieved today, and also add to that a cool, casual $100,000 check that he gets to win.
You heard him reference the fact from a point standpoint. Yes, there are points that are attached to qualifying for this race, for the season series in general. Yet, that's like the only time you'll hear people talk about points racing during the month of May, because that conversation now ends between now and next Sunday.
Yeah, and it's the same when it comes to the 500. If you want to take your decision, okay, I'm either going to finish second and collect good points for the overall championship, or I'm going to gun for the win on the final lap, every single time out, you go for the win.
Again, the last 9 drivers were the ones that will start in the first 3 rows. Yet on a technicality, in terms of speed, the fastest 3 qualifiers are the front row: Dixon, Carpenter, and Rossi. The car that was 4th fast today will start inside row 4. Ryan Hunter-Reay, the fastest of the early qualifying group, beat all but the top 3 from the Fast 9.
Yeah, and he's going to be wondering, if I were in the Fast 9, would I have had a shot at the pole position? But it's not to beat this time for Ryan Hunter-Reay.
So while the pole goes to a Chip Ganassi car, spots 3, 4, 5, 8, and 10 go to Andretti Autosport cars. 5 cars in the first 4 rows with the Andretti badge.
They have some magic around this place. They do, and even considering what a bad year they've had so far this year, they offload here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and they're always so strong. And I think a lot of that has to do with they pour so much of their engineering resource, even in the lead up to this race, during the other races. They put so much engineering resource into preparing for the Indy 500.
The stat that I gave is, as we briefly stepped away and then came back, Honda cars. Honda has 14 of the top 17 speeds. What does that mean next Sunday?
When it comes to outright pace, I think it means that they have it. If it was a 10-lap race, I would give it to Honda every single time.
We've got 20 of those.
We do have 20 of those. And I think that's where Honda's going to be scared. They already dialed back the RPM a little bit earlier in practice, so I think that's what we're going to be looking out for in the race.
A front row of Scott Dixon, Ed Carpenter, Alexander Rossi. What does that mean for this event?
I think it means we're going to see legends fight it out at the front.
We'll be wrapping it up in the not-too-distant future. The smile will not go away from that man's face, at least until tomorrow morning. Scott Dixon, your pole sitter. Activity has ceased at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in terms of on-track activity. Fans beginning to file out of this great facility at 16th and Georgetown. The next time the fans really start to come back in the numbers in terms of thousands will be on Carb Day on Friday, when these drivers will have a final hour-long practice session. The Indy Light Series will have their Freedom 100, and there's concerts, and it's basically just a big day to party and skip work here in the greater Indianapolis area. But then a week from today, Anders, there will be over 300,000 people here to watch the 101st running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
And to think that the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is sold out yet again. Last year for the 100th running of the race, it was jam-packed, oversold.
Today
there
you
were
had
so
a
many
mile an hour faster, but not fast enough. Now tell us what you were thinking. You were sitting in the car, watching the screens and watching Dixon's run. What was going through your mind?
Well, I heard the crowd first, and I knew it was going to be a big number. And you know, I went kind of like yesterday. You know, I thought if you would have told me we would average what I did, I would have thought that probably would have been the pole. I mean, even when Hunter rated his time, I wasn't sure that was going to get beat. So happy for the team. We've got a car on the front row, a car on the second row. You know, Fuzzy's Vodka keeps providing for us. The team keeps providing for me. And it's nice to have a Chevy on the front row. But when I saw Dixon's time, I knew it was going to be hard to beat.
Ed Carpenter will start on the front row in second spot come Sunday.
You had kind of both the driver's perspective and the team owner's perspective saying, hey, we're a two-car team. We're both in the top 2 rows. That's pretty doggone good.
And it's so cool to see Ed Carpenter, you know, team owner and driver, you know, in a field of these huge conglomerates to still fight it out with these massive teams.
You saw the teammates and friends embrace briefly, and Scott Dixon and Tony Kanaan. Kanaan will be a couple of rows behind him, spot number 7, both on the inside lines. How quickly does the qualifying mindset go away to the race mindset, knowing these cars are in race trim tomorrow afternoon?
Well, Greg, as of right now, I'm counting about 20 cameras down there. As soon as they will go away, the focus has been fully shifted to the race. Scott Dixon already now is going to be thinking about, I learned something today that's going to apply to the race. And tomorrow, they're going to be running in large packs. They're going to be running way more downforce on those cars, trying to figure out mechanically and aerodynamically, how do we need to run it, as he's putting the Verizon P1 sticker on the car there with his family. What a great moment for the Dixon family.
These guys will drive tomorrow. Weather forecast is fantastic here tomorrow, so they'll get their final lengthy race practice in tomorrow. Then for the better part of 3 days, they kind of scatter to the four winds in terms of media obligations and sponsorship obligations. Then by the time you get to Friday, it is back into race mode. And in one sense, you try to make it like any other race. But again, you've heard me reference those numbers before. Last year during this event, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway became the 57th largest city in the country with 350,000 some odd people. Can you even try to make this like any other race by the time you get to next Sunday?
You absolutely cannot, and I think the one guy that's going to get to experience that is Fernando Alonso. Now, here's a guy that's won 2 F1 World Championships, that's been a part of so much in his career, but even I think he cannot comprehend what he's about to experience next Sunday.
He's going to start this race middle of row 2. What does that mean for him?
It's a huge result, and I think the one thing is the outright speed, where I think I'm not surprised that he's so far ahead. But where I'm even more impressed with him is just looking at his maturity in traffic during the course of the month. He's looked so good. He's positioned his car so well out of the turbulent air, using the apron when he has to when other cars are running high in front of him. So he just knows where to position his car in his first time here at Indy.
Row number 1, Scott Dixon, Ed Carpenter, Alexander Rossi. Row number 2, Takuma Sato, Fernando Alonso, J.R. Hildebrand. Row number 3, Tony Kanaan, Marco Andretti, and Will Power.